What if I told you that the most heartwarming Christmas story ever told involved a home invasion, feral reindeer, and a Santa Claus on the brink of total collapse? It sounds impossible, but Family Guy pulled it off in a way that no other show could. But the crazy part is how they went from winning awards for their music to producing an episode so lazy it does not even use the real voice actors for its main celebrity guest. We are diving deep into the glorious mess of the best and worst specials. You need to see this. Basically, when you look at the entire run of Family Guy, there are 12 Christmas episodes in total, all varying wildly in quality. But to truly understand the gap in quality, we have to look at the absolute peak. The idea for this comparison hit me after watching the very recent Hulu Christmas special. They marketed it as something unique, but in reality, it was nothing more than a regular episode with some snow in the background. In my opinion, Road to the North Pole is the very definition of a Christmas special. Clocking in at 47 minutes, it feels far more grand and epic in its ambition than anything else they have done since. You can feel that difference right from the start with the title cards that pay homage to classic holiday movies, all set to a sweeping cinematic orchestral score. What most people do not realize is that when this first aired, it felt like a massive event because it was broadcast in full screen high definition. This was a huge deal because Season 9 marked the first time the show switched to HD, moving away from the old letterbox format of the earlier seasons. It visually signaled that this was not just another week in Quahog. This was a movie. The episode opens with Seth MacFarlane's father, Ron, narrating the story. And yes, that's his real dad. The crazy part is that Ron was only suggested as the narrator as a joke to make Seth laugh during a writer's room meeting. But Seth ended up loving the idea so much that they kept it. Sitting in front of a cozy fireplace with a cute cardigan, he looks incredibly wholesome. That is until he opens his mouth and delivers the classic crude humor we expect. But here's the catch regarding the production value. The music in this episode is not just background noise, it is phenomenal. It starts with the song All I Really Want for Christmas, which centers around everyone's desire for material goods. This ties directly into the episode's core message about overconsumption and the true meaning of the holidays. Interestingly, Seth and composer Walter Murphy actually wrote this song years ago, back when the show was first canceled. The writer loved it so much that he kept it on his personal playlist. In fact, this entire episode was partly created just to give that song a second life. It is catchy, it is fast, and it sets the stage for a story that is about to go completely off the rails. So here's the deal. Things take a turn for the weird almost immediately. After waiting hours at the mall to see Santa, Stewie finally gets his turn, only for the mall Santa to completely brush him off and rudely tell him to leave. Naturally, Stewie decides to take the most extreme step possible. He vows to eliminate Santa Claus. It is a bit of an overreaction, but for this character, it tracks perfectly. Before they leave, we get an incredibly awkward encounter with Brian, Quagmire, and his niece. The social cringe here is top tier, with Brian accidentally making insensitive comments about her health. It is that petty rivalry between Brian and Quagmire that fans love, and it serves as the perfect setup before the main adventure begins. Their journey takes them across snowy, desolate landscapes, all soundtracked with a beautiful choir score playing underneath. Seriously, the music is so good here that it elevates the animation to a different level. Everything seems thoughtful and like a real production, not just a rushed cartoon. Eventually the guys know they are getting closer because they see the aurora borealis lighting up the sky. It is a stunning visual, and the show even manages to slip in a sly reference to other animated giants. But whenever we get these epic globe-trotting adventures with Brian and Stewie, I've always wondered what Lois and Peter think. Are they just okay with the fact that their dog and baby are vanishing for days on end? Well, we finally get an answer. Stewie reveals that he has built robot replicas of himself and Brian to cover their absence, and that is putting it lightly. The sheer time and dedication Stewie put into creating not only his and Brian's robots, but also the notary, his entire family, and even an entire tour bus full of robots is absolutely ridiculous. It creates this bizarre subplot back at home that balances out the darkness of the road trip. It is absolutely hilarious to watch a robot version of Brian fail to understand basic human interactions, leading to some of the funniest dialogue in the season. And get this, when they finally arrive, the reality shatters their expectations. Eventually, Brian and Stewie arrive at the gates of the North Pole, and Brian is completely stunned to find that Santa is actually real. But instead of the whimsical, festive paradise Stewie imagined, they find a grimy industrial factory that looks more like a biohazard zone than a workshop. When they knock on the door, they are greeted by a gaunt, haggard-looking Santa. In a massive twist, Santa actually begs Stewie to just get it over with and end him right there. Realizing there is no fun in taking out someone who wants to go, Stewie decides to spare him. This is where the episode drops its heavy social commentary. To keep up with the ever-growing demand for Christmas, Santa and the North Pole have been pushed to their absolute limits. They're producing gallons of toxic waste, and the elves have been reduced to a sickly, mutated workforce just to sustain the operations. Santa explains that he started with one family of magic elves, but every year he needed more and more to keep up, leading to a genetic disaster. As if things could not get any worse, the feral reindeer have developed a taste for elf flesh. It is intensely dark and really creative. I've never seen a workshop depicted like this before. It is basically a grungy sweatshop. This leads into one of the best songs in the entire show. Christmas Time is Eliminating Us. The visuals are dark, the lyrics are biting, and the melody is ridiculously catchy. This song was so well received that it was nominated for a 2011 Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Music and Lyrics. It even earned a Grammy nomination. The song ends dramatically when Santa collapses, coughing up blood. The Dr. Elf informs them that if Santa leaves to deliver gifts, he will not survive. So in a moment of holiday spirit, Brian volunteers that they will take over for him. They saddle up, ready to take on the task, but they have to use drastic measures, like using elf parts as bait, just to get the reindeer to fly. It is grim, but it fits the tone perfectly. What most people do not realize is that delivering presents is harder than it looks. They stop at their first house, or should I say crash into it. They slide down the chimney and right off the bat, things go very, very south. After locking themselves out, they break in through the window. Then they start fighting, which wakes up the homeowner. He catches them in the kitchen, but before the guy can call the cops, Stewie takes him out with a baseball bat. It is a chaotic scene. As if things could not get any worse, the guy's family wakes up. Stewie has to neutralize the wife and tie up the daughter. To top it all off, they then realize they are at the wrong house. This scene is perhaps the most controversial moment amongst fans because some felt it went way too far. The writers and directors even discussed on the DVD commentary that they received calls from people saying they loved the episode, but asked why they had to be so brutal to the father. I totally get why some people would be turned off by this, but honestly, the dark humor lands because of the absurdity. The fact that they only made it to one house and still managed to ruin it completely, it's just ridiculously funny. They started off with such pure intentions of wanting to help out Santa, only to end up in a crime scene scenario not long after. With police sirens wailing in the distance, the two make a quick escape by flying away. The next morning, everyone in Quahog wakes up disappointed to find there are no presents under their tree. To explain what happened, Brian and Stewie wheel out a sickly Santa live on TV. They tell everyone that there is no holiday this year because people's greed overwhelmed Santa and made him sick. Brian urges everyone to ask for less stuff, and the entire town agrees to limit themselves to just one present a year. It is a surprisingly heartwarming end to a chaotic hour. 1 year later, the North Pole is back to normal, the elves are healthy, and the message lands perfectly. Now let's flip the script and look at the absolute worst example. We move on to what I consider to be the bottom of the barrel. Season 22's The Return of the King of Queens. I had not watched it since it first aired a year ago, so I thought maybe I was being too harsh. I decided to rewatch it with fresh eyes, and yeah, it was still terrible. The episode centers around the actor Kevin James and how traditional sitcoms are fading away. Honestly, it felt like it was written 5 years ago considering his last show ended all the way back in 2018. For a show that prides itself on being current, this felt incredibly dated. Here's the deal that makes it so frustrating. To have an episode revolve around Kevin James and not have the actual guy voicing himself is such an odd decision. Family Guy has so many A-list celebrities come on to voice themselves. Ryan Reynolds, Liam Neeson, even Tom Brady. You're telling me they couldn't get Kevin James? The voice actor they hired sounds nothing like him. It pulls you out of the experience immediately. But the biggest issue is that it does not even feel like a Christmas episode. Sure, it is set during the holidays, but that's about it. You could have placed this storyline at any time of the year and it would not have made a difference. While the ending does involve a nativity scene, it is all really just a commentary on the decline of network TV comedies. It feels like the writers just wanted to complain about the industry rather than tell a funny story. Aside from a few decorations in the background, the festive spirit is completely missing. It is all just set dressing. It also does not help that Brian and Stewie, the heart of the best specials, are barely in the episode. The entire focus is purely on Peter and Kevin's incredibly unfunny storyline. When you compare this to Road to the North Pole, which had a strong message, incredible music, and high stakes, this new episode just feels lazy. One feels like a movie, the other feels like a contract obligation. Is the dark humor of the old seasons too much, or is the new stuff just too boring? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives.